Hello and well met. This is Layron with the Fantasy Grounds Academy. Today I'm going to go into creating custom instructions for the Chat GPT platform. And I use this for many things. Like this is on a social media post I just put up. So you can do all kinds of stuff with Chat GPT, especially the paid version. So just as a heads up, this is a paid version. I think it's $20 a month for the subscription. And it's definitely worth it because it's not just for gaming. I use it for all kinds of things to speed up process, to make things easier when you're creating content for whatever your specific field of business is. I don't necessarily trust 100%. So some of the stuff I make, I have to kind of look over it, make sure that it's that's basically what I want. But in general, I want to say 75% of the time it's useful. I don't have to mess with it too much. So what I'm going to do is show you some things that may help you not only learn Fantasy Grounds, but also learn how to use a program like Chat GPT to create content. And that's something I've been focusing on for the last few months. It's taken me a while to kind of get used to how the tools perform and the limitations and that sort of thing. So one of the biggest things that happens generally when you're new to anything is that you want to go big. And that tends to be problematic for both Fantasy Grounds and for Chat GPT. So you kind of want to compartmentalize what you're focusing on in regards to content creation. It could be maps. It could be anything that pertains to the hobby or to Fantasy Grounds. So one of the things I've been doing is refining and building tools based off the information that's already out there. Other than paying for the subscription for Chat GPT and having Fantasy Grounds, which is I've already paid for, you can use this tool kind of for free. I mean, not Chat GPT, but all the other stuff that's out there. So there are a plethora of things out there, such as a way that you can basically take transcripts from videos and use those to help you create content. So this is just one example. This is a video by Zacchaeus on YouTube. He does a lot of the D&D 5e conversions, the official ones. This is Philip Gregg or Zacchaeus. I'll put the link to this particular video. But basically, he's got a ton of videos that has tons of information, and they're not even very long. So one of the things that you want to do with transcripts is first you want to find a video that's under an hour, because usually video content that's over an hour, it's really hard to work with the text that comes from that. And you'll see here, you say show transcript, and what that does is it shows all the actual verbiage, the words that were spoken throughout this video. This particular one is Wiki Encounters. So that's the topic. So the third video on NPCs and encounters, it looks at encounters and random encounters. It was made to complement the update to the 5e wiki article, which you can find here. So basically, this information that comes from this video has essentially been transcribed to this particular article on the wiki guide. So you can use either or, but if you need to, let's say you have a favorite topic or a subject or any type of research that you want to do, you could essentially take this URL or this address here and copy it and go to a tool. This is called tactic.io, and you can paste that in there to get the transcript easier. One way to do it is to take all this text and highlight it, but I like using this tool because it actually gives you the ability to download it as a text file, or you can just copy and paste it. So I'm going to copy all this information and hit copy. Or if you want to save it for later, you don't have time to deal with it, you can just download it as a text file. So if I hit the download button, it'll generate a basic plain text file, and it'll allow me to download it. So it just depends on what your needs are. But at that point, what you can do with that text is you can come over here to Chat GPT, and I'm just going to use a normal one because I don't have anything defined, but let's just I'm going to paste the content, which is all of these different transcribed text from the video. And this can be any video, but I'm sort of theming and applying this into Fantasy Grounds, but you can do this with any rule set. Like if you have a favorite show that you watch and they do tutorials and such, you can do that with this and, you know, that sort of thing. So essentially what I'm going to do is tell it or request that Chat GPT refine this information and make it into something more useful for me. So I'm going to say, please, I always say please, I don't know why. It's just a habit. Please reformat and use the timestamps as a way to help determine useful content regarding NPCs and encounters. So I'm just kind of asking it to refine it, kind of filter it. So please reformat and use the timestamps as a way to help determine useful content in regards to Fantasy Grounds. And in this case, this is NPC encounters, I believe. Yeah. And then I'm going to say organize. I'm going to say, let's say I want to organize into a professional and useful guide, something like that. So hopefully it'll be able to determine what I want. Not always, but you know, 9 times out of 10. So I'm asking it here to please take this text and make it something for us. So let's see what we get out of it. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the send message. And this, again, this is just going to, it's going to take and analyze this. Now, if you have a large 1-hour video, this script is going to be too big to process. So you got to pick your battles with this, because if it's too big, it's not going to do it very well, and it's going to cough and give you errors and all kinds of stuff. So this one isn't bad. I think videos that are under half an hour are probably perfect for this sort of thing. If you get any longer than that, it starts to challenge the capabilities, and there'll be less focus and all that sort of thing. So this is just kind of taking the timestamps and using that as kind of like a guide so that you can use this and you can reference this in the video. So I'm going to ask it to add the video URL link too, because I like to be kind of thorough, and it's kind of like quoting your sources kind of thing. So I would just go something like, I've already had it. I'll say, please add, I'm going to say, please add the video link. I'll say YouTube video. It'll link source, because I want to give Zacchaeus credit. And then I also want it to reference this wiki guide. So I could have done the same thing. Essentially, I could have copy and paste all the text out of here and made a instruction set for this, because this is a lot more detailed, right? This is going to give you all kinds of ways to how to create encounters and build your NPCs and all that kind of stuff, like the NPC action. So I'll do that next, but I want to reference that in this particular section here for my request. So I'm going to say, please add the video source, and then please add the Fantasy Grounds Atlassian. So I'm just taking the instructions that are free, that are available to us, and kind of compiling it into something more useful. So here's the video link. So I'll copy and paste that, put that into the references here. And then down, go over here. Here's the wiki guide. And then take this and put that here. And then I'm going to, in parentheses, I'm going to put thank you at Zacchaeus, because he's the one that does these. And it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be doing a lot of this stuff. So gotta attribute people who helped you out. And he continuously does so. So this is that. So there we go. There's a source. Yep. Okay, so this is just a way to kind of organize your kind of like your references. So I asked it to add the video links and the step-by-step stuff here. And then see, here's the video reference link. So if you wanted to put this on a website or post it in Discord or, you know, anything like that, you could technically ask it to format it for Discord or for your website, or just plain text. So you can just copy and paste it into a Word document, however you want to do it. My suggestion is to put it in Fantasy Grounds, because that way you're not going all over the place looking for this stuff. So this is how you do this. This is one way that you can incorporate tools into your workflow for Fantasy Grounds and for anything else. So this is just a thing that talks about how to do the encounters, how to add the NPCs, just a challenge rating of an encounter, and then you could set up identifiers and factions. So they were talking about in here, when you go to encounters, and how to use this random encounter part, or how to create your own, and then you drag over the NPCs, add the CR level, that sort of thing. And this is also covered in the article here for the Fantasy Grounds encounters on the Atlassian wiki guide. So that leads me to the next thing we could do is I can go, okay, so here's this link. I'm going to hit copy. And sometimes it gives me an error like, oh, I can't access that article, or I can't do that. So I might have to copy and paste, but in this case, I'll see. So I'm going to have it, when you say research, that gives it a good idea that you want it to look at the website. It's not necessarily going to copy verbatim, but it does pull out the information. So I'm going to say research the following URL and compile into a useful guide for use in the Fantasy Grounds platform. And then I'll put the link there, and we'll see what it does. Sometimes it'll say, oh, I can't access it, I can't read it. I don't know why it does that. There could be a thing on the website that keeps it from robots and stuff out of there. So sometimes there's a little tag that you can't see that was, you know, incorporated in the website, and it doesn't allow people to scrape the website. But this is basically taking that information from the website and kind of breaking this stuff down. So that's really, and then it even quotes where these came from. So that's really nice. So you get your citations. And then it just kind of made like a summary. So it really didn't do exactly what I wanted, but it basically gave me a breakdown of what is on that page. So that's helpful in that regard. But now I want to say, please expand and detail each section. We'll say one at a time, to conserve memory, because that might be way too much for it to handle. So even though it can consume or take a response where, you know, it can have up to about 300 pages, you don't want to do that. It's way too hard on it, and it doesn't give it room to calculate and parse and all that other stuff. So try to keep the content that you're putting into it a lot more compartmentalized. Like I can take sections of it if I wanted to and like copy and paste it in groups. I want to see if it'll do this. Please expand and detail each section on the Atlassian website one at a time to help. So what I want it to do is just take each section and do that instead of all at once, because that's where these things can be problematic. See if it will do it. Please expand and detail each section. Certainly. Let's start with the first section. So this is probably going to work better. So this is talking about accessing the NPCs. So I can look at the website, and let's take a look at what this first section is. So these are all links. Yeah, so it's just visible to only the Dungeon Master. You open the list from the module, click on NPCs. From here, DMs can create new NPCs, edit existing ones, and create encounters. So this kind of goes back to some of the encounters and the NPC stat block import thing that I've been working on. So this would be helpful. So like I said, this is called tactic.io. I'll put that in my video description at the end, but essentially this is where you can take a video, get the transcript for it, and you can copy or download it. And then that way you can copy and paste it, make your own reference manuals or your own content for whatever you need for research or whatever. So this is just a tool that helps you with that. So let's see what else we got here. So this is just for the first section. Let's see what this gave us. Yeah, it even says, would you like to proceed with the next section? I'm going to say yes. So this is creating separate conversations, which I think is good. And that way it's not, you can like copy and paste sections at a time instead of trying to do a one big, huge, whopping file. So this just talks about using the NPC sheets, the overview of what the stuff means on the NPC sheets, and then it starts getting into creating. So it says, here's your methods. Like you can copy an existing one, which is the easiest method. You can create a blank where you fill in everything yourself, and you can use the import tool, which is best for NPCs from external sources like websites or PDFs. So the importer process is explained in a separate video guide, which Zacchaeus has done. I've also done articles on it and such. I like Zacchaeus' videos, but sometimes he doesn't show the actual data very closely, or he doesn't show all the particulars because he wants to keep the video short. But that's where the struggle is like if the formatting isn't correct, it's really going to be annoying. So here's that. Would you like me to do the type size? Yes. So I'm just going to keep saying pretty much yes until it's all done with all the different sections on that page. And it might take a while. But if you ask it to do the entire page, it's going to give you a summary like it did here, which I don't have a problem with because then it gives me an idea. So we have accessing, we have creating, we have traits and actions for the NPCs, and then we have like this little conclusion that kind of comes up with Chat GPT. But this will give you kind of an overview. Would you like me to do detailing NPC traits and actions? Yes. This is an important section. Well, they all are, but this part of it is very important. So NPC actions, inbuilt parser. So Fantasy Grounds has a parsing that tool inside that recognizes certain keywords or combinations of words. And this is where it's important to know what that does. So the types of actions would be weapon attacks, damage and healing, saving throws, conditions, all that stuff. Great. Which one would NPC traits stick? I'll say traits first. It says which one. Okay. So it's going into this, like how to word it, all that stuff. And say, which would you like me to expand upon? And now actions. And I'll say continue to the next section. So essentially you can build your own guide. That's kind of what I'm getting at here, is you can kind of build your own text things. And now it's saying, I've covered the section of NPC traits and actions. However, the provided lasting links contains more comprehensive information about NPCs and encounters. Yeah, that's good enough for now, just for the demo. But I can really go in and just say, okay, let's take this section here, let's do all this and all that. And so we can do that. We can say, okay, let's do all this stuff here. So like NPC traits, what I would do is take this information and take it down to the actions part and copy that information. So sometimes you got to give it the direct text, not just a, just a header or a website. Sometimes it needs the actual thing here. So that's the traits overview. So hopefully it'll give me some more of that stuff. Yeah, see, now it's giving you examples of the actual data. So this is kind of what you want when you want something more thorough and not so generic or top level. All right, so while it's doing that, I'm going to go to the actions part and take that. And let's grab all that stuff. See, this is really the crux of this, creating encounters. Okay, so we're there. So this is how you kind of compartmentalize this so that, okay, so this is the action. So it's going to get into parsing actions for, and by the way, this is for D&D 5e. Might be a little different for Pathfinder and some of the other rule sets. So it's not one for one when it comes to tools and ways to input data into a rule set. So that kind of is different. So here's creating encounters. So I'll grab that, grab all the text from there. So this is just a way that you can kind of start building your tools. So, and I'll show you there's another step to this, which is kind of important. And then I'm going to say, after it's done here, please include links and a citation appendix for the conversations above. So I want it to cite some of the links and stuff, since I don't like building this and not attributing the person that built it or the source. So I think that's kind of shitty sometimes when you're trying to do something. You're like, well, where the hell did they get this information from? So that's kind of why I asked it to do that. Normally, people don't care about that, but if you're going to publish anything or put anything out to the public, it's just kind of fair to do that better than, just nothing. So it's given me a list of links here, which is great because that's what I wanted. So if you wanted to go to create NPCs, it'll take you straight to that section instead of having to go through the whole page. Okay, so when you have something like this, you can basically take all this information and make a custom Chat GPT with it. So let's just say, let's go with creating encounters, okay? So we want to take this information from creating encounters, and then what we'll do is I'll hit copy, and then I'm going to go to the explore section over here in Chat GPT. Now I'm going to create a GPT, so it's a custom version of Chat GPT with specific instructions. So go ahead and hit this. And what are we going to make? We are going to make, I want to make an NPC encounter builder for the Fantasy Grounds virtual tabletop platform. I want it to help me parse the required data, the formatting, and the instructions on how to access this type of data in Fantasy Grounds. So this is kind of my request, almost like, what are you going to do with it? Well, we're going to do this, So encounter builder. My typing is horrible. Required. So Fantasy Grounds data. Okay. So it's just asking me, like, what do you want to make? So great, we'll create this. Yep. For the name, do you want to call it Fantasy NPC Builder? I will say Fantasy Grounds Encounter Builder. Because that's kind of what this is going to focus on. The other parts of it can be the NPC Builder. Yeah, it even gives you an icon for it. I'm pretty good with that. That looks great. I'll say yes. So it will build you a little icon kind of based off the context of your conversation. So I'm saying, yeah, go ahead. This is going to be the kind of like the application icon. All right, let's find can you please specify the changes you'd like to see in the profile picture? Oh, I'll say it's good. I wasn't paying attention to what that asked. So building this thing, great. Now that we have a profile, let's define the specific role and goals. Can you tell me more about the specific types of NPCs or encounters you want to build? For instance, should it focus on combat encounters? I would say both. And also traps, hazards. Because we're just, yeah, I think both. I don't need to worry about that. So both. So I want social encounters and, okay, is there what about, should it avoid or anything like that? Any guidelines? Okay. So I'll say this is for the D&D 5e rule set. Refer to my data first, and then the SRD 5.1 for reference. Okay, so that's essentially kind of defining the parameters. So I want it to look at the stuff that I'm providing at first, the instructions. My data first, refer to my custom instructions. And my data first. The reason I'm doing this is because I've done videos where kind of showing how I've used the tools. I kind of wanted to show you how to make the tool. Because it's like one thing if you have all these tools, but you're not understanding quite how they work or why they work. So that's kind of what I'm doing this for. It's not really exactly Fantasy Grounds, but it's related. So, okay, so yes, this is, I want to say avoid huge amounts of data. To preserve the integrity of the information and to be fair with the use cases, or I'll say with the use of Chat GPT. So as a as a user, I wish more people thought about that, because they're pretty kind of greedy. Like, they'll sit there and just keep pounding on this application, not realizing that every little bit of data that's being sent back and forth is really tough on the servers that they have. And you can tell during peak hours, it's just horrible. Because you got a guy that says, make it red. No, wait, make it blue. No, they're like, they just like do like little things like that. And it's like, oh my God, just tell it what you want and be done with it, but people are trying to learn how to use it. That's part of the, I did the same thing though. I can't bitch about it. Okay, so got it. So encounter builder prioritize your custom instruction and data for D&D 5e rule set, has a secondary reference that will focus on concise relevant information. Now in terms of interaction, how do you want to communicate with it? So let's go with the formal tone, but a little bit gamified for the Fantasy Grounds platform. So I don't want it to be a robot, but I do want it to give me precise for non-data related replies. So when it comes to giving me the output, I want it to give me precise data, but when it is just asking me a question or something, it could be a little bit more, informal. It doesn't have to be specifically like perfect. So it updated the behavior. So now it says it's all tailored to do that. Well, this isn't enough to go on. So I'm going to go to the configure tab, and this is giving me this thing here. So this is kind of rewording, rewording the content that I just gave it. So I'm going to set up some custom instructions here. So shift, and I'm going to hit, the first thing I want is to say is use my data first. And I don't know how many times I have to tell it this, but basically it will do whatever it wants sometimes. I want it to use the data that I'm going to give it first. That way, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be fairly accurate. And then I'm going to say use the context below for reference. Okay, so I'm going to hit Control V. Get rid of this overview encapsulate. Yeah, I don't give a crap about that. Okay, so there is a limitation on this. So if you're finding that you're running out of room with your custom instructions, you can create a PDF and you can upload this PDF to the Chat GPT, and it'll read that stuff, but just don't make them too big. So don't try to put a whole freaking rule set in there. It's not going to do it. It's not going to work. If you want it to, read a pretty good size PDF, I suggest breaking it up into a few chunks. If it's a really wordy thing, I've tried. I did upload a huge, 290 page PDF. It doesn't like that. I uploaded the SRD. I don't know how many pages that was, but it was a lot. Let's see if I can find it. Yeah, so here's the SRD. Let me see what the properties. So the properties on that thing, it's 3 gigs. So that already tells me it's kind of big. Yeah, it's probably too big, is what I'm getting at. So if you're going to feed it information, don't. Yeah, this is over 400 pages. So that's a no-no. So you don't want to give it, even though this doesn't have any graphics, really, it is just a reference. It's pretty big. So if you're going to give it something, I would break that down into a few different sections instead of one huge whopping file. So you can have it analyze adventures. It won't copy verbatim, but what you can do from that is pull out whatever data you need out of there to help you with your conversions. So it does stay cognizant of copyright law. So it does try to prevent people from just taking a rule book and, taking the whole thing and making a copy out of it. So do I want it to explain a D&D 5e rule? No. Format data for Fantasy Grounds? Yes. Suggest a social encounter. So that's cool. Or create a combat. Wait, why did it give me an error? Is it too much data? No, just randomly gave me an error. Okay, so create a, oops, what the hell happened there? Explore. Okay, here we go. Going to edit, going to configure. Okay, it's okay. So let's see, format data for, suggest create a D&D 5e combat encounter for Fantasy Grounds. I want to kind of target what it's going to do. And then format data for Fantasy Grounds, I'll say encounter data. So these are starting points. That's all these are. They're not critical. So then once you're done, or if you need to edit it, do that. And I went through and I gave it all my custom information. And when you copy and paste stuff from a website or a PDF, you'll get all these double spaces, which isn't necessary. So I kind of went back and took out some of those spaces because you're limited on how much room that you have. So this is just going to help with that, like save space. So you're kind of limited on your instructions. So what you could do here is say, look at my knowledge files for this and look at this other file for that. So you can tell it to point it to, your uploaded PDFs. So if you have something wordy, put it in the PDFs. Don't try to shove it all in the custom instructions. That's all I'm trying to say. So I'm going to go ahead and hit confirm. And now let's test it. So when you're back to your regular menu here and you want, oh, by the way, you can share these with people if you want to. So I'm going to go click on this custom encounter builder and I'm going to say create, this is a default, create a D&D 5e combat encounter for Fantasy Grounds. This is just going to do some kind of generic thing that it's going to, so party size and level, see now it's asking me some specifics, so that's pretty cool. Do you want to include anything? So, okay, so for number 1, I'm going to say, let's go with party size. Okay, I'm going to take this information here and answer the question. So party size and level. I'm going to say 5 players, level 3. Setting or theme. Do you have a specific setting in mind? Encounters, forest, dungeon. So we're going to say dungeon crawl. And for a location, we'll say Forgotten Realms, just as an example. And then it says desired challenge. Are you looking for easy, medium, or hard? Any specifics? Do you want to include any particular types of NPCs or environmental challenges? So let's put in environmental. We'll say let's do a trap. So mechanical trap, traps. We'll say Underdark themed monsters. Let's see, mechanical trap. Environmental challenge. mechanical trap, Underdark themed monsters with a low to medium challenge rating or something like that. So now it's going to calculate that based off of these parameters. So let's see what it gives us. And this would be ideal if you just were doing one encounter, but I'm asking it to do more. So it says for a party of 5 level 3 players adventuring in Forgotten Realms, specifically in a dungeon crawl setting with an Underdark theme, we can create Underdark themed monsters. Okay, so here we go. So environmental challenge. Hazardous terrain, slippery ground due to moisture on uneven surfaces requiring a dexterity or acrobatics check. Bioluminescent fungi emitting a soft glow. They can suddenly brighten, requiring a constitution saving throw to avoid being blinded temporarily. There's a stone pressure plate hidden beneath the earthy floor. It triggers a volley of darts from hidden holes in the wall. Detecting it and disabling it requires a wisdom or perception and dexterity thieves tools check respectively. I would have to say also maybe sleight of hand would work. Monsters, there's Dwergar scouts, giant wolf spiders, and some quaggoths. Talks about the dynamics of these encounters, like the Dwergar scouts are initially invisible, observing the party. They'll attack if the party triggers a trap or engages the spiders. Giant wolf spiders use hit-and-run tactics, climbing on the walls and ceilings to ambush the party. And the quaggoths are agitated by noise. They will emerge mid-battle, adding to the chaos. So that's pretty nasty encounter. So there's your experience points. So due to multiple monsters, adjust XP for 5 players. So it even gives you a rough idea of the XP. And then implementation to Fantasy Grounds. Create the encounter, add the monsters, set the quantity, and adjust their health if necessary. Include the details and notes about the environmental trap. So this is kind of giving you a rough idea of how to set this up or use it with Fantasy Grounds. But that's pretty extensive there. So that, this tool can be used in a lot of ways. And this isn't exactly what I was thinking, but it's actually more than I was thinking it would do. So it's pretty incredible. So this information, you can copy and paste it into Fantasy Grounds and use this for your notes to build your encounter. So no, it's not actually doing the encounter or building it, but it's giving you the guidelines to do so. And this will also help you get used to how to use Fantasy Grounds, that sort of thing. So let's just say that you want it to build the NPCs. So you can ask it to do that, but you have to give it a good template. And I would suggest, instead of trying to do everything in here, you'd create another Chat GPT just for building the stat blocks. And that's what I had done in other videos. So if you wanted to create all these monsters and copy and paste them into Fantasy Grounds a lot quicker, you can. So let's try this. So I'm just going to give you an example. So let's go with, I'm going to copy the monsters here. And then I want to show you some of the challenges that you'll come across when you're doing this. So I'm going to copy this stuff. And I'm going to go to my D&D 5e stat block builder. And I'm going to say create a D&D 5e stat block for the following monsters using my data and template. And this is the thing that can be very irritating and frustrating. So I'm going to tell it to do that, and it doesn't always give you exactly what you want, but I'm asking it to build these encounters using this tool that I've created to help build the NPCs. So this is just a challenge that you might come across occasionally. So I'm going to do that. I'm saying do that. Normally I do one at a time, but I want to see how it handles this. So there's the Dwergar Scout. Oh, it's using the template. So usually it gets this part wrong. This is where it normally screws up, but it's actually doing good. So yeah, it's building the NPCs, even including weapons, background. It's doing exactly what I asked it to do. And there's that. So there's the giant wolf spider. And then it's actually going to build probably going to build like a trap or something. Oh, there's the Quaggoth. Okay, so those are your NPCs. And at this point, since it's done it correctly, I don't have to mess with it too much. You might have to look at the armor class occasionally. What's it doing? Oh, continue generating. Okay. It ran out of memory. So I would only do 2 at a time for NPCs because it will stall out on you. You can ask it to continue, but sometimes it'll error out. So don't ask it for 50,000 NPCs at once. Maybe 1 or 2, and then go on to your next set. All right, so this is just a kind of an idea that you can use to import this into Fantasy Grounds. So what I want to do is take this information and copy and paste this into the tool. As I was saying before, you don't always have the same tools in every rule set, but at least you have the build, and you can copy and paste this stuff into the stat block. So here's the Dwergar Scouts. So if I go into Fantasy Grounds, first I have to build the NPCs where I can build the encounter. So again, I have my own group, so I'll go ahead and select that. And then down below here on import text, pull that up. I'm going to hit Control V as in Victor. And this background, tactics, and appearance, this is all going to move over to the right because it won't parse correctly if I have that in there. And then if you want to see kind of how it will clean this up, you can right click and go to clean up text so it gets rid of all the extra spaces. And then I'm going to use the Dwergar Scouts as my header on the right hand side over here. Hit Control V and right click, clean up text if you want to. You don't have to, it'll do it automatically. But this is basically just some notes about this particular Scouts. So now that that's done, I'm going to hit import, and that'll bring that stuff in. And so far it looks right. So if you want to look these over, yeah, so this looks, they have enlarged visibility, sunlight sensitivity, and then you come over here, there's your actual summary. So this looks really good. So it worked right. It actually did what I wanted to do. Sometimes it will not. It'll basically make this part wrong. It'll take the like strength and put the number after it, and dex put the number after it. You don't want that. Or it will give you like it'll type out the whole word or whatever. So if you give it a good definition file and examples, it'll usually work. And if it doesn't do it right, you can ask it to redo it and tell it to use your provided data and template. And that's important because if it doesn't, it'll just kind of do its own thing. And I don't know why, but it has a mind of its own sometimes. But if you actually tell it to use your data, it's more than likely going to pull from whatever the information that you've given it. So let's take a look at this. I'll put in the rest of these. So I'm just trying to show you how fast this is. So there's the Scouts. We'll do the wolf spiders. This isn't including the artwork. We could do the artwork for these too. So if you wanted to go the extra mile, we can do that. If anyone's watching, you're interested in that part, let me know. We can make the images for these guys if you want to make tokens and stuff. If not, I'll just keep kind of babbling here. All right, so let's see. So now I want to take this information, go back to Fantasy Grounds, go back to the import tool, and do this again for the next set. So this is just the background information, like I said, you don't want to leave that there. So I taken this out. And then right click, clean up the text if you want to. Said you don't have to. It'll do it automatically. Oops. All right, that. And I'm going to put this as a header. So Control 2 is the header when you highlight. Control B for bold for that. And import. So just go on to the next one. So go in here again. So we got the Quaggoths now. So this is a way to kind of speed things up for you. I mean, you could do all this in Fantasy Grounds without Chat GPT. Okay, so that's the traditional method. That's the method that you need to practice with and kind of get used to before tackling all this other stuff. You kind of get used to the tool, the limitations of it, because like I said, if this text isn't right, it's not going to work. It's going to piss you off. So let's see, so like that. And I've learned the hard way, like what not to do, essentially. I don't always know what to do. I know what not to do. And one of them is to kind of flake out on the formatting here. You really got to know like what it's going to do, the behavior of it is basically what I'm saying. Oops, I didn't want to yeah, I did. I'll get rid of that. Okay, so here's the Quaggoths. Import. Looks right. Yep. So that wasn't bad. Like, 5 or 10 minutes. If I wasn't explaining it, I'd already been done with it. So that's a really quick way to import NPCs, especially if you get a lot of them. That's really helpful. You only need one. You could probably just enter it by hand or make a copy, do it that way. But when you got several of them, this is really quick. And what I do like is if you use the import tool, you get this nice summary in the back. You don't get that normally. Older content, you'll notice, won't have that. It might have a link and a little bit of lore, but it's not going to have a summary. And then if you hand enter, like if you just generate an NPC yourself and you hand enter it, you're not necessarily going to get that fancy thing in the back, so, or the summary. So that's why I like using that tool if possible. I mean, it's not that big of a deal, but it's definitely worth for visual appeal. All right, so that's that. So if anyone's, you guys are good, you guys want, I can do the art part of it, because that's basically the next step. Or I would have done that first, made a list of all the NPCs, generate all the art, then do the NPC information. But in this case, kind of in reverse order. So just however you want to compartmentalize your workflow. But I can take and try to make the images. So let me take this first command that I had here, and I'm going to go into the art. So fantasy art crafter is what I've called this. And what I'm going to do is create the monsters. So I'm going to say create the following monsters using my data and templates. And then all I'm going to do is just leave it just like this. But I want to say, just create a portrait 1 by 1 square aspect ratio. And then I'm going to say expert and detailed Dungeons and Dragons character art, something like that, character artwork, and that way it kind of has an idea of what I'm referring to. And I'll say make these 3 separate monster images, because I don't want it to put them all together in one picture. So you kind of have to tell it exactly what you want. I'll say generate, instead of make, generate these 3 I'll say these 3 monsters into 3 separate images. We'll see if it can handle that. Sometimes if you give it too much data, it will struggle with it. It can't handle it. Sometimes you got to do one at a time. But it should kind of know. I even give it a little reference here. I mean, this is based off of the previous content. So again, I'm in a different tool. This one is more for creating this type of artwork. So instead of trying to do everything in one, this is, I don't know why it created this gun, but it looks pretty cool. I like it. So I might have it redo that one, but I like the image. It's really cool. There's the wolf spiders. So I might, attempted, but it did not align with our content policies. A ferocious bear-like that has been disturbed. Oh, okay. So what I want to do is tell it, I think disturbed by the party's presence is flagging it. So I'll say recreate or create image number, or I'll say monster. Create, I'll just say create, and I'll say a ferocious bear-like creature that's been, I'll say that it's create a bear-like creature that's agitated and mad. Do something like that. So sometimes it will false positive, the content. That's why it gave me that error. And sometimes the server's got so many people using it that it just breaks it. And it just gives you all kinds of weirdness. And then I'm going to have it redo this image. So the trick with this is I kind of want to keep this kind of the general feel of it. I like the way it turned out. But I want to first let it do its thing here. And I want to say what was the image gen ID, which is the generator for the Dwer. Oh, how cool. For the Dwergar dwarf above. I'll say previously, because now the above is this creature. So I'll say what was the gen ID for the dwarf was this. Okay. So it gave me this is like a seed or a string that you can use to help kind of retain the consistency. And I want to say that this thing, it looks too much like a bear, so I probably have it redo that. But this thing here, I want to say remake the image of the Dwergar using gen ID. So I want it to use the same settings, comma, but do not include modern weaponry, or they'll just say modern, period. Modern content and his skin should be gray. We'll just say it. And with a bald head. And white eyes. It those kind of ugly, milky white eyes. White, I'll say milky eyes. Kind of disgusting looking. See what happens. So far, the keeper here is a spider. So I would definitely use that in something. That looks really cool. I like how it took and made these little random dice looking things that look like spiders. How crazy is that? I mean, it's unnecessary, but it's still cool looking. The Quaggoth, I'm going to have to think about that one. That one looks okay, but it looks a little bit too much like a bear, I think. Yeah, that's a little better, but it doesn't look like a dwarf. So I'm going to say, I should have said Dwergard dwarf. That's why it looks this way. So let me do this. So I will copy this. And this is, like I said, this is what hammers the servers, because I didn't do it right the first time. And when I'm like, oh, wait, I want to, that's kind of what overtaxes the server, is this kind of stuff. So remake the image of the Dwergard dwarf using gen ID, blah, 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 but do not include any, I'll just say do not include modern content, period. His skin should be gray and with a bald head and milky white eyes and a squat build. So that way it's kind of more dwarven. This kind of looks more like a gnome or something. This could be a deep gnome. I mean, it could be anything. I like how it has these little dudes in the background. Crazy. All right, so, oh, look at that. I've reached my daily limit. So this is another thing you're going to come against. If you use this tool a lot, it's going to say, hey, you've used this too much. So it's going to say, come back in 20 minutes in this case. So you have to, that's why I'm saying you don't want to generate a bunch of crap and then run out of your quota. So I can't use this anymore until 10:53, and that's so that they can divide up the server time so it's a little bit more fair for everyone. So I don't have a problem with that, but you get the idea of what you can do and some of the ways to do it. But if I go back into my tools here that I've made and I go back into let me go into the NPC thing. So if I go to edit and go to configure, this is what I gave it. Create an item stat block, create a stat block for a vehicle, do stat block lock. The hell? So this is what I'm saying. You can come through here. Create a stat block for a hazard or trap Create a D&D NPC stat block using my provided data template. So these are important things that, little details here. And then here, this says, just gives it the example of how exactly I want it to look. So once you've done, if you want to update these and refine them, you can. So I'm just going to save it and then call it a day because it doesn't want me to use the generation tool for today. So anyways, if you missed what I'm working on, I was showing you how to build custom Chat GPTs to create content. This is more specific to Fantasy Grounds, Dungeons and Dragons, but you could use it for just about any tool you want. And I'm using like videos and the Atlassian guide for formatting and for rules and all that kind of stuff for how to use Fantasy Grounds. And earlier I used this YouTube capture program called, I can't remember, it was something tech.io, which basically allows you to take the transcript of a video. So you wanted to go into Zacchaeus's videos, and he's under Philip Gregg, but you can go through his stuff and you could take his videos. His are normally short. So if you wanted to create a new race in Unity, you could do that and have it do the transcript of it and then kind of build your own tools with it. So anyways, take care, everyone. The stuff that I used will be in the description of the video at the end. So if you missed what I'm doing, you can always go back and watch it. Happy holidays. I hope you enjoyed your Thanksgiving. And if you're more interested in this kind of stuff, you're looking for a workshop, I'm doing another tutorial live one though in the Discord, and I put the invite out there already, but I'll go ahead and put it in the description again. But essentially it'll be this Monday. We're going to go through and kind of talk about this kind of stuff in our Discord. So if you're interested in getting a little bit more in depth on it, or you can just go back and watch all the videos I've been making.